I hope you are doing fine. And these are special classes conducted for lockdown due to COVID-19. And I will be taking your SST. I have posted the schedule for SST in the WhatsApp group. Kindly check it and keep an update of the timetable. Firstly, let me introduce you to your new SST book. This is your SST book, which we will be reading this year. And I will be teaching you the first chapter because we have to cover the unit test portion. I am posting the video. Please listen to it carefully with peaceful mind. If you don't understand, again, play it again and again and try to understand. Make notes of it. After the completion of the chapter, we will be discussing the question and answer in a live session. If you have any doubt regarding the chapter, if you have any queries, questions regarding the chapter, you can post your questions in the WhatsApp group. I will answer it during our period which is given to you. So I'll answer that. Listen attentively and let us begin the SST chapter 1. So all of you open your books and let us see the first chapter, Indian History Part 1, from the British rule to freedom struggle. Every time when we see, we just ignore the title or the heading of the chapter. As per the title of the chapter, from British rule till we attain freedom, the struggle to free India is mentioned in this chapter. What are we going to study in this chapter? We are going to study that how the Europeans came to India, how did the European advent begin in India, how did they came and stepped, and how did they made their stronghold in the Indian soil, how did the British rule begin, what was the Indian, because we learnt in the prior classes that Indian rulers were very strong, then how come an empire from so far land can come to India and rule India? We will discuss these matters. How did East India Company expand and what were their policies? We'll discuss what is this East India Company, from where did this East India Company emerge, why did it emerge in India, and what was its role in the Indian history, what was its role in the history of India. What was the revolt of 1857 all about? What is revolt and what was the revolt of 1857? We'll learn about it. How did social reforms movement start? What all problems were there in our society, and how did reformation, and who were the people who brought reformation in our Indian society? We'll learn about that. What, when and why was the Indian National Congress established? What led to the partition of Bengal? What was Indian National Congress? Why was it established? And why was Bengal partition done? And what was Swadeshi movement? We will learn all this topic in this chapter. In the 15th century, voyages of discovery were underway by different European powers in order to find the new land. Among all the nations trying to gain access to India, the first to reach was the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama. It was not that India did not exist and Vasco da Gama found India. India was there. But Vasco da Gama, what he did, he exposed India to the European nation at that time. Because in the prior classes we have read that India was a prosperous nation. The kings were very generous, very nice. They just worked for the improvement of their subjects. People were happy, people were prosperous. So there was no problem with the subjects. And even before the advent of Britishers to India, we have evidences that even gold and silver coins were in circulation for business purposes. Just imagine the prosperity of the nation that they were using gold and copper coins. So, since ancient times, the Western world or the people from Europe, from Denmark and all, they were trying to come to India, they were trying to enter India from the shortest possible way and fastest way. They had to sail a long distance to come to India. But this success came to Vasco da Gama and he found the easiest and the less time consuming path. He came from, on his way he en route Africa, on his way from Portugal to India, through via Africa he came to India, and he reached India and thus exposed to the Western world that a country rich with gold, silver, silk, spices, a rich and prosperous country. India is there in the eastern part of Europe. Then he began his voyage. Voyage is a sail. It is a long journey. It is voyage is either known as a long journey in a sea or long journey to the space. Here we will consider it is a long journey from Portugal to India in the sea by ships and all. So he began his voyage with a crew of 170 men from Lisbon, Portugal in 1497 CE, that is Common Era. He reached Calicut, now Kozhikode in Kerala, via Cape of Good Hope. Cape of Good Hope, it is in Africa. So he reached via, I told you now that he came through Africa, and then at that time Africa too was also not that much revealed to the Western world. So southernmost tip of Africa. In 1498 CE, India was famous all over for the world for spices, cotton, sugar and raw silk. In India, means just imagine, there was I'll teach you ahead in the chapter. There was a race in the Western world to just run and exploit this country, because this country, India, was very, very rich. In ancient time, if you'll find in olden films and all, or in Hindi books, literature and all, you will find that India was so rich and prosperous that India was termed as a golden bird. Sone ki chidiya, they were telling that. So India was termed as a golden bird, and there was a race in the Western world to come and to capture this golden bird. So at that time, the spices, mostly the South India, especially Kerala and this Calicut and all, and these places are very famous for spices. Indian spices are very costly and very famous since ages in the world over. So he came world for spice, cotton, sugar and raw silk. Sugar at the time, raw silk. Till today, silk and cotton is very costly attire. Making a cotton attire for yourself or covering yourself with a silk apparel is very costly compared to other cloths. So soon the European ships belonging to the Dutch, the English, the French came to trade with India. It is told, it is somewhere written, I read in some book, that when Vasco da Gama came to India, he had to ask the king to sponsor his adventure, his voyage, with so many men, bringing 170 men in the ship as the crew. And when he reached India, after living here for 2 years, when he went back, it is said the king of Calicut, he gifted him so much things that he had to go with thrice the number of ships he had come. It is said that. So when he took the presents and when he presented the silk and all the costly precious gemstones, precious metal like gold and silver and all, when he presented the king of Portugal, he was amazed. Which country is this that they have presented you so much costly gift? And thus they felt greed towards India. And after hearing this, it was a race among the Western world, the Dutch, the French, the English, to come and trade with India. Now, let us read, how did European advent begin in India? How did European advent begin in India? Why did the Europeans thought to come to India? The European advent began with the arrival of Portuguese, who first discovered the sea route to India. Portuguese Vasco da Gama was from Portugal, and they were desperate to come. They had heard about the prosperity, the wealth, and the richness of Indian country, and that is why they were desperate to to trade with India. And first Vasco da Gama or Portuguese came to India. It was followed by the French, the Dutch, the Danish, and the English. These all people came back to back. They came to India to trade with India. Each had formed their own company. They had formed, suppose you think I am a seller, I want to sell my product, and suppose I went to another city and I want to sell my product there. They came with their own products to sell in India. Each had formed their own company, namely Dutch East India Company, French East India Company, Portuguese East India Company, and English East India Company. This way, they would buy the goods at cheaper rate and sell them in the European market at higher prices. Now just think for a while that why everything and then East India Company? Why Dutch and East India Company? Why Danish and East India Company? Why English and East India Company? Firstly, geographically, India is to the east of Europe. That is why East India Company. They came here, and then for them, because these things were very costly in European markets, so they came and they purchased these goods at cheaper rates from India, transported it to their own countries and sold them at higher prices and made profit. Each company set up their own factories in different parts of the country and settled here. When they came to India, they found and they asked the permission of various rulers, and throughout India, many settled in West Bengal, many settled in Gujarat, many settled in Tamil Nadu, many settled in Kerala, and thus they started, because seaports were near. At that time there were no railways, no airways. Sea was the only way of communication from one continent to other. So the ports were easier for them to land there, and wherever they found the transportation was easier, the shipping connection was there, they set up their factories there. Then let us discuss a very crucial topic. How did the British rule begin in India? Because that was a turning point in Indian history. The big period, and so big a country with so beautiful history, with a mighty lineage of emperors ruling the country. How did it come to the clutches of foreign rulers, the clutches of Britishers who came from so far continent? They were not nearer to our country. Still then they came from so far, and they were our masters for a long period of time. Let us discuss how did the British rule begin in India. British rule in India. Again, let me tell you, if you have any doubt in understanding, kindly write down your question and you can post it in the Standard 5 SST WhatsApp group, and I will answer your question. So, English East India Company or British East India Company was formed and run by a group of wealthy merchants and noblemen. Why a wealthy merchant formed this group? Because to sponsor a voyage from England to India takes a lot of money. The ships can go, the ships can break, the ships can be destroyed in the storm, pirates can loot the ship, the crew members can die of sickness, anything can happen. So, it has to be sponsored, a lot of money has to be invested in the venture. Just imagine if we go from here to Raipur, we have to spend a lot of money by train. So at that time, now because it is even easiest and most common mode of transport, at that time it was unusual to go from one continent to other, and it took years to just journey to sail through the sea. So it needed a lot of things to be kept in the ship for such a long voyage, and it needed a lot of money. Queen Elizabeth I, ruler of England, granted the East India Company a charter in 1600 CE, allowing them to trade in the East. And I was just preparing this chapter, and I was going through, I hit upon an amazing fact. I read an amazing fact. The fact is, till date, British East India Company is the largest business corporation in the world, which owned its own army. Till today, you can find no Reliance, no Mittal, and no Bill Gates. No one is having an army. British East India Company was basically a trading organization. It was a business house. It had its own army. It did war with the rulers. And finally, it was authenticated by the ruler of its own country, Queen of England. She had authenticated that this is, because till today we have big business houses, but still then it is not authenticated by the Prime Minister that this or this company belongs. I give the permission to go and just fight with other country. No Prime Minister or no head of the nation gives that. So the Queen, she granted a charter or permission in 1600 CE, allowing them to trade in the East, allowing them that you are, Queen told that you are permitted to go to the East Indies. At that time, India was known as Indies. Go to the East Indies and you can trade there. Over a period of time, the East India Company was able to establish exclusive control over trade of India. They were very cunning people. The English people are very cunning. Just imagine they came from so far and they were few in numbers and we were so large in number. Still then they managed to dominate us and they managed to rule us. How cunning they might be. So they came and then finally they took the trade control in India. It emerged victorious in wars for the trade against Dutch, Portuguese and French. I told you, because they maintained the private army. They maintained a big resource because they used to employ the local people to their army. So there was a competition because the Dutch also wanted to take things from India. The French also wanted to exploit India of its resources. In the competition, the British, they defeated Dutch and French, and then they emerged victorious. The company made special treaty with Mughal Emperor Jahangir to trade in Gujarat. Now, treaty is a contract. It was a bond. They signed with Mughal Emperor Jahangir. He was the then ruler. He was the ruler of Delhi, but Gujarat was under Delhi. And then they told, because suppose I am there and I will tell that no, in this part, in Bhawanipatna, only my products will be sold, then it will be a written permission. It was like that. So they made a treaty or contract with Jahangir that they will sell their products there, trade in Gujarat. Slowly, the company strengthened their rule and also used aggressive method to expand trade. Now they crossed the borders, they crossed the limits of goodness and ethics in business. Now they started to war. They now started to aggressively. They started to unlawful practices. They do unmoral practices to make benefits in the trade.